So I thought I would take this opportunity to share a really cool thing while I'm driving home, because I have no time ever. Even though time's an illusion, I am still bound to it in some regards. I was channeling the other night and I got this really amazing message from Gaia herself, the one, the only Gaia. What was cool is I hadn't really channeled her in a long time, and she showed up in my field, and I was really excited because, you know, I haven't talked a lot about this in video, but there's been, you know, a bunch of other amazing creators that have talked about this, about an ascension process that the earth is going through right now and what that looks like. And for the group of people that awakened around the same time as me or before, there's some awakening now because of the sun activity. It's been really, really cool to hear a lot of similar messages come from people. It's not only like validating that like there's this looming part of like every most light workers who are like, am I crazy? No, I'm not. Am I? And so when you hear that other people are channeling similar things, you're like, oh yes, I haven't lost it yet. And that thing is, you know, we're going through an ascension, and that process is going to be different for different people. But as a whole, there is a splitting of Earth consciousness. Now, some people call it the rapture. I was raised with that concept of like pre or post tribulation rapture and the Christian language around it. But there are a lot of different groups that across the board are experiencing the same thing in their intuition. And, you know, when I worked in hospice, 2010 to 2013, I saw a lot of people go through their death process. And one thing that I found really striking about it is that no matter what religion or belief or not belief a person had, for the most part, the death process and the miracles surrounding it, or the visions, were consistent across the board, which to me solidified that there is kind of like a universal truth and consciousness that we return to, that we're greeted by a love frequency that helps us through that threshold. And there were some outliers. There were a couple that were like scary deaths for them energetically, that I just couldn't even be in the room because there was so much darkness. But largely it was all the same beautiful transition in between here and there where the veil is. I was hanging with the veil for years. And what's cool about that as it relates to this is that there are a lot of people who are connected to a source energy, but they call it different things. They call it different things. Like the scientists are saying, well, the sun is having a lot of activity now, and there's X-class flares. We had one today. And then there's all this, you know, Schumann resonance and activity in the earth. There's like extra, you know, plate tectonic behavior. There's like volcanoes erupting that haven't. There's weird weather. Like, so they'll call it other things. But then you talk to a different group of people and they're like, well, the earth is ascending. She's going through her cycle right now. And they just use different language. Well, one of those kinds of languages that has come to me in terms of like what's happening right now is very specifically, there is a splitting of the earth, like an atom splitting. But this one's going to go this direction. This one's going to go this direction. Let's look at it maybe like twins. So they're like identical twins, but they're split at birth and they're going different directions. One's going to be raised maybe in a third world impoverished country that's war torn. And the other one's adopted by like a super nice, altruistic, emotionally and financially stable family who loves to live in the wilderness or on a beach or something naturey. Very different experiences, even though they started out in the same space. They're splitting. And so the earth is doing that right now. Vibrationally, there's a raising consciousness, which is part of our age of Aquarius. going into the age of Aquarius. Well, good news, I have 4 signs in Aquarius in my chart. I'm the most Aquarian that ever Aquarianed, and it's an era that I get and I understand. It's the breaking down of old systems. It's beginning anew. Well, a lot of people are experiencing this with fear, as in, there's, oh God, there's a lot of, war and tragedy and volcanoes and tsunamis and lions and tigers and bears. Oh my. And that's fair. Like, if they don't know what's happening, that would be very, very scary and confusing and overwhelming. And you see like economies and wars, and all politicians are kind of awful, and all the systems that we have are just very shaky, and everybody knows that that's not sustainable. No one can afford anything. Everyone's just like barely scrimping by. Everyone's tired. Their mental health is challenged. I'm a therapist, I know. And at the end of the day, that's a perspective. I know that the earth is going through just a change, and when it splits, whatever vibrational frequency you're at is kind of where you're going to be experiencing your reality, which is easy to understand if you think about, like, in the city I'm living in, there's a bazillion people, not as many as some larger cities, but there's a ton of humans here that I don't know, and everybody is experiencing a different reality of this day in this city. Every single person is having a different experience that's wildly different. Even if they work at the same place, they're the same age, they have a basically similar relationship, they're all different universes they're in. Some people, this is the worst day of their life. Some people, this is the best day of their life. All these different universes and experiences based off of their frequency and how they're experiencing the world around them. Well, the earth is going to do something like that is all frequency. And when I was channeling Gaia the other night, she described it in ways that were so freaking cool. In particular, so segue, my daughter loves musicals. She has since she was 4. She's 18 and now, but the love of musicals has maintained throughout her entire existence and will persist indefinitely. I am certain of that. However, she's had favorites, and one of her favorites is the musical Waitress. The musical Waitress we saw in the touring cast. It was the fall before COVID, and we listened to it a lot that year just together in the car. But she's had other musicals she's liked, obviously, since then. But the pro shot of Waitress came out this week. And a pro shot is when it's basically the Broadway performance with the cast, that is the Broadway cast, that is filmed like a movie or a TV show live. And so it's professionally done. It's like the best seats in the house, and you can buy tickets to go see it at a movie theater. And when she learned about it, she said, we're going to go see it. I'm like, great, I love that musical. So we go and we see it in the theater, and it hits me hard every time I hear it, because this particular musical is about a woman who is in an unhappy relationship with a guy named Earl, who's abusive, and in all the misogyny ways, like small town, small mind kind of mentality of like, you should be cooking, your money is my money, you should be grateful to be with me, abuse. A lot of implied physical abuse as well. She's married to this guy, Earl, and she's a waitress at a diner. And she, against her better judgment, had sex with her husband when she was drunk one night, and she ends up pregnant. She doesn't want to have a child with this horrible guy. And so she's trying to figure out how to free herself. And she's great at baking pies, and it's like a simple story, but not, and the music is wonderful. But long story short is she ends up kind of like reawakening her consciousness when she has an affair with this gorgeous doctor. And it's not something that's going to last, but it makes her remember who she is, and that she's a real person, and that her needs matter, and she wants to get out of this relationship with Earl so that she can start a new life with this baby she's decided to have. And it goes on into that. And it's all about her remembering who she is. And it's beautiful. And spoiler, she, leaves Earl and opens her own pie shop, and it's beautiful. She's then a single mom raising her daughter. It has always hit me in particular because I was a waitress when I got pregnant with my daughter, and I was always a single mom. And just like the love you have for your child and how much they contribute to who you're going to be and who your authentic self is just extraordinary and beautiful. And I'm always a blubbering mess, and I was holding my daughter's hand and squeezing it and kind of joke sobbing in the movie theater. Well, I took it for what it was. I took it for, it's a musical, it's a great musical. I enjoy the musical. Well, I think it was 2 nights later, I was on this walk, and then Gaia showed up to give me a little lesson. And she brings up all these metaphors in the movie Waitress. I did not see that coming. And I've talked with Gaia before, and she's always sharing things that are just beautiful and emotive, and I always see her hair flowing and with all the elementals, and she's this ethereal goddess of movement. There's just so much movement and transformation within the transformation in the way she presents herself. It's how the earth is. And she was like, I'm going through a breakup right now, which is not really how I've looked at it before. She's like, I'm going through a breakup right now. It's really cute guy, was considering, maybe he's not that bad. Maybe he's not that bad. Maybe he's gonna change. Maybe he's capable of changing. He says that he cares, but, and when you're in a relationship like that for a long time, you kind of change your idea of what's good and what's bad. So when someone's in an abusive relationship, they think it's a good day when dude isn't hitting or insulting or whatever, but that's just basic human decency. Instead, a good relationship looks a lot different, and it's more reciprocal, it's open, it's honoring, it's all, all the things. But she's telling me, she's like, it seemed like a good idea at the time, and I wanted to kind of know what it would be like to date this person being misogyny and darkness. It was her dark era where she was just exploring what is it like if she has all of her power taken away and is treated as though she is just a piece of meat or a resource. And she's done that. But if you've ever been in an unhealthy relationship and then you realize you're in an unhealthy relationship, there's a moment where you're like, oh shit, if I'm going to get out of this relationship, it's going to be really painful and difficult, and it affects everything. You've already woven all these things together, especially if you own a house together, you have mutual friends, you have mutual bank accounts. There's so much going on that is together that to take it apart is going to be absolutely excruciating, if nothing else in the logistics of it. But further, you're dealing with an abusive man, and that's misogyny. So the world, she said, is this misogyny that kind of got out of control, and she kind of forgot who she was before while being in this, because it's kind of been explained away, how unhealthy relationships can be manipulative and gaslighting of oh, you're just overreacting, it's fine, we'll just frack ya, we'll just pillage and rape you for all your resources, and I'll pay back later, it'll be fine, you're resilient, right? That's what Gaia's gone through. But it's just not working anymore, this relationship. But she went on to say this splitting part that we're in, where the two realities, these two densities and vibrations are splitting from each other, is that darkness of the misogyny world and the other option, which is this timeline where Gaia leaves the abusive relationship and she figures out who she is. Now, if any of y'all had gone through a breakup where there is some kind of like abusive dynamic, small or large or whatever, in it, you know, and if it's been for a long time, you kind of forget how to be a person on your own. It's really overwhelming. Some people don't even know what they like to do because they were just like going to football games because that's what their boyfriend did. And now they're like, I don't even know what I like anymore. What do people do that don't watch football on Sundays? What do people do when they're not like cooking all the time? Or, you know, people don't know what they're interested in, their hobbies. When I work with those patients that are going through that kind of transition, and we're kind of coming up with ideas of what to do to fill their time because they're feeling depressed and sad and overwhelmed, sometimes they're just like desperately trying new hobbies to see what will stick. They're trying on new hats, new masks, new identities. They cut their hair. They will go out on Tinder dates with guys they'd never date before. You know, they just try on new things, and it seems like, what is wrong with her? Her family will intervene and be like, have you lost your shit? Really, she's just trying to figure out who she is. And so Gaia tells me she just really wants to cut her bangs. And she's going through a transition, but the dust hasn't settled yet. Like, it's at that point now when the breakup has happened, but you haven't exchanged boxes of stuff or changed your residence, whatever. One of them is talking shit to their friends and having cosmos, while the other one is like text bombing and threatening. You know, that's the dynamic that's happening, because as above, so below is real. So these threats are, you know, these passive aggressive and aggressive threats of the ex is really all the war and the political shit and the economic stuff, and all of that is happening right now. That's like the violence. That's the misogynistic shadow male. To be clear, there is a lovely non-shadowed and healed divine masculine that is fantastic. It's just not what we're dealing with here. It's not a man-hating speech. But then when you are the one who's going through that breakup, the feminine, you may lose a ton of weight because you can't eat, or the other side of things, you may just want to live off of French fries and ice cream for a while. You may dye your hair weird colors. You could be trying on new looks, going into a new era, listening to Taylor Swift nonstop. It can get crazy. If you're me, it was Sonny DeFranco, but you don't know what you're going to be yet, but you definitely know you want to take back your power. And sometimes that looks angry. Sometimes that looks like meltdowns, and you're having to cry in the bathroom at work and lock the door, vomit, because you don't know how to be. Everything is changing. Anger, sadness, gut disruptions, earthquakes, tsunamis, volcanoes, emotion coming through. But here's the thing. She's been through some eras before. She's tried on some different, not personalities, but she's going through her own cycles. She goes through her seasonal cycles, but she's going through her life cycle right now. And life cycles we go through are all different, from like infancy, toddler, childhood, adolescence, adulthood, and old age. We're going through different cycles. Each one of those eras is something hugely different in our lives. And she's going through a new one of those cycles now. It's bigger than, say, fall, winter, spring, summer. It's different than that. It's happening on a bigger scale. But in the past, she's been overreactive with these. Like in the past, instead of just like looking at something differently, she's turned herself on her head with her pole shifts, which is happening right now. And those have caused the cataclysms that killed the dinosaurs or massive floods, whatever. But this shift is happening at a smaller scale. She told me she's just tilting her head and looking at things just a little different. You know, when a dog's confused and they're like, "Arr?" She's doing that right now. But when she does that, everything on the planet has to go like this too. She showed me a level you know, of the tools kind of, and there's that bubble in the middle. And so when you tilt it, the bubble shifts and it's like, no, you need to move it this way again. Well, she showed me the level, she moves it, and the bubble changes its north. And so everything on the planet has to move just a little bit like this. That affects freaking everything. Absolutely everything. And small and large scales. So just that little boop is going to change the way we look at things. That's being mirrored in people's internal relationship with self and others. Anecdotally, patients breaking up with their partners, their spouses, their work environments, their like quitting careers. It just doesn't feel right anymore. And that happened a lot with COVID when it started, but it's getting more and more where people are like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm tired. I really just always dreamed of moving to this place, and I'm just gonna fucking move to this place. And they do, and it's wonderful. People aren't okay being not okay anymore, or just like getting by. And that's kind of where Gaia's at. She's just going to like not put up with it anymore. And everything, like her, is just tilting a little bit and being like, nope, I'm out. And so we're mirrors of her. Like, we're her cells, if you will. And because of that, it's affecting all of us physically, emotionally, spiritually. People are waking up left and right, realizing that there's more to life than the grind and traffic that I'm currently in, and that they want to live this life fully. But the age of Aquarius is all about breaking down old systems and being a bit rebellious and redefining things to be brand new. And Gaia's about to get real with that. Those old systems, old paradigms, old ways of being, like, she's not going to have it anymore, because that's part of her other era when she was, you know, more passive or was willing to put up with things that weren't in her best interest. Now, if anyone is familiar with esoteric, historic kind of lore around antiquity, you will have heard that there are different eons in Earth's existence. The Hindus refer to yugas, and those are eras of Earth's cycles. They correspond somewhat with, you know, the zodiacs, and they hold themes like that. Well, the eons have gone through the father eon, mother eon, son eon, which would be like the Osiris, Isis, Horus era. But there is going to be now the daughter eon, and we're going into that divine daughter eon now, which means we have to deconstruct all of these systems to build up new systems that are supportive of the divine feminine, aka Gaia, in this situation, taking her power back and becoming what she was always intended to be. And so it's really exciting, but to a lot of people, it looks like mass destruction and fear. But I want you to know, with those transitions, it's all about vibratory frequency. So if your vibratory frequency is fear, which is the lowest possible vibration, I feel like shame is also just, but fear is the worst. It's kind of chaos, the opposite of love frequency. If you want to be on that higher frequency, that timeline where you're this twin being put in this realm with the supportive family and the beautiful nature and all your needs being met, and having the ability to express yourself how you want to express yourself, and create and collaborate and really co-create, not just create by yourself, but be part of a community oriented perspective and paradigm, that doesn't come from fear. It comes from love. If your world is going to look more, you know, like Hollywood's apocalypse movies, that's fear-based. and going into that fear mindset of, I'm going to have lack, I don't have enough, people are going to try to hurt me, I best get some guns. Like, that mentality is going to support the fear mindset and the fear reality. So in this splitting, there's a lot of peace around the acknowledgement that, you know, if I am looking forward and excited to know, what is this new reality going to be? Is this new reality going to be truly what I've dreamed of having space and time to express myself in ways that are exciting and expansive to me, while also not working myself to the bone to like give all my money away for my basic needs? That is the reality you want to invite into your life. Think of that. Think of that reality as being true. Daydream about it. What would that feel like if you woke up in the morning and you could like sit under a tree in your backyard and sip on your tea or your coffee and have a purring cat in your lap and casually read a book, and then decide what you want to do for the day, because there's nothing on your docket immediately pressing, making you leave the house in a rush. Oh my gosh, doesn't that sound amazing? Just living in that frequency of that thought takes you into a higher plane of vibration and takes you into that reality, as opposed to the darker one. And so even though there's a lot of unknowns around right now, please, I encourage you to try to access as much as possible the potential. Even if you feel like it's total BS, just consider it a daydream. And when you're feeling anxious about something, go to that place and vibrating as much as possible into that expansive, excited state of being will create that state of being. And if you look deeper into a lot of stories like The Little Princess or Secret Garden, or, you know, all of these things, the wealth and the abundance comes from the surrender and the gratitude. That's what we're at, folks. Gaia's going through a breakup. She really just needs to listen to some sad songs on repeat and occasionally get a little angry and throw a fit. But at the end of the day, she's going to realize maybe bangs aren't for me. I look a lot better with long flowing layers, and I really love the color blue, and I'm just going to not get a tattoo of a butterfly on the base of my back, even though I wanted to. I'm not going to. Show some compassion for this transitionary time, because you know that when people are going through breakups, they're not their best self. And Gaia's going to get it back together, but she will do it with our support, because everybody knows when you're going through a breakup, you just need some really solid friends, some good ears to listen, and people to not judge you while you're going through a thing. And that's what she's asking of us right now, to support her and lift her up and give her an invite to Thanksgiving and Christmas, because she doesn't know what the hell she's going to do with all the splitting of the friends. It's rough. We've got her back though. And just like in Waitress, Jenna left Earl and opened her pie store with her daughter. We're going into the era, the eon of the daughter. The feminine is returning. She's taking her power back. And I swear to God, I really want pie now. It sounds so good. But what are your thoughts about this whole metaphor that Gaia is going through a breakup? Because when she told me about it, I was just like, that really tracks for me.